Very good morning to all of you. We have a very special program today over here, and without wasting any time, we will get started. So basically, we will start with the felicitation of Lieutenant R. Madhavan from the Indian National Army. And for that, I would call upon Dr. Subrato Gangopadhyay, our President, IHAR, Professor Sudhir Lal, IGNCA, to felicitate Lieutenant Madhavan.
75th year of transfer of power that we call independence. This is the heart of it. So we've gone over the spiritual foundations, we've gone over our civilizational foundations, we've gone over our intellectual foundations, but this is the history we need to preserve, without which all that we entangle through archaeology, all that we entangle through epigraphy, all that we entangle through archaeoastronomy and software and this and that has very little relevance if we cannot preserve our living history that is right in front of us. And so this is the session that we at IHAR believe should be preserved first. If we cannot understand what is right in front of our eyes, the testimonies of people and their families who sacrificed their lives for this country, then we are incapable of anything greater. So calling ourselves Vishwa Guru and all these things has very, very little significance if we cannot do what we must and should have done long back. So this is a small attempted rectification of that process that our country tends to forget. It's past 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, and 100 years. And in the heart of the capital, so here are the people from whom you should hear what their lives have been, what their histories have been, what their testimonies are. So we are delighted and proud that these families have agreed to come here, and we are very grateful that they are here. And on your left, here is a 97-year-old veteran, a living legend, a history and a testimony to this country's independence, if you can call it that today. So we are proud to have Lieutenant Madhavan, and we would please stand up. Please stand up. No, not him. He keeps sitting. He's deserved his seat. Please stand up. And welcome Lieutenant Madhavan. Do we have the plaque? Sorry, do we have the plaque? And we will begin by honoring him. And then you have their families, and then you have the historians who have also given a large part of their lives silently trying to resurrect and establish the truth. And this needs to be done. Okay, we will assemble the formal assemblage at the end, and then we'll conclude with the honor. But let us now begin the session, and then we'll end it up with a book release and an honor for Lieutenant Madhavan that symbolizes the honor for all these families who we have not known before, but we plan to know very, very well. So, Surya, can you take it over?
Yeah. Please. So, we will now start our panel discussion on the Indian National Army, and we'll try to bring out facts through this discussion, things which many of you may not have heard or it has not been documented of. So to start the proceedings, we'll start with our Friend General JS Dhillon. Dhillon sir, General sir, it's an honor to have you here. So we would like to get your thoughts So, sir, we would like to have your thoughts around, say, from Vishpala in the Vedic age to Rani Durgavati in the medieval times, or Pritilata Vadedar in the Indian struggle movement. Indian women has been in the forefront of combat roles from earliest of days. So we would like to get your thoughts around what took around 70 plus years post-independence to get women into a combat role in the Indian Army or the Indian Air Force, to open up the gates for the National Defense Academy, and to get them as fighter pilots in the Sukhoi 30 MKIs. So your thoughts, sir, please.
First of all, my salute to Raghavan sir. Because of that lineage, I am here. I think one always gets into doubt whether you speak in English or Hindi. I'll keep on mixing up. Also Punjabi in between. Because what we are here, this young researcher, Shubham will tell you that how many people from Punjab were in INA. About myself, I have my family names from India Gate, where those First World War people are there, because my great-grandfather was part of the First World War, along with his younger son, and I don't know where they got martyred. We are still trying to look at it, but now there's something has been published in London. We are still trying to catch. Then recently, we had Netaji's statue installed there. So there, of course, some deeds of my father lie at the feet of Netaji, which whenever I come to Delhi, I make sure that with my children, I tell them to go there. And many people are visiting there. And I had the fortune of being posted in Calcutta for 4 years as a part of defense. And some people from my friends in Delhi, they said, "Bhai, tere jinne ke baal hai na, ithe tere pad dene Bengaliyan ne." You understand? I said, some of my colleagues told, okay, whatever little hair you have left on I have enough hair on this thing. But then they said, because they are very volatile. I said, you must know, I am going from Punjab, and Sardar Bhagat Singh and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, they have no problem between them. So that is the best posting I had. That was Controller Small Arms for the Indian Defense. It is not only Army, it is all paramilitary forces, Air Force, Navy, and also the NCC and like. Then my father, he was the third generation. My grandfather went through First and Second World War. And when I was commissioned, because my grandfather had a car in 1937, he retired to rejoin Second World War again. And then my father, he was cycling throughout because he was shunted out from army because of NA. Somehow from court martial, my grandfather saved him. But, it was very tough life. And I owe my Pindo Majja Char, rearing the buffaloes and cows. I became lieutenant general in the Indian Army. That was because of cycling of my father, who was part of under them INA. So then extending beyond that, there's a National War Memorial, a great honor and done by the present government to this thing. And there I have 12 of my course mates, my batchmates, whose names are there in the 71 war. I was commissioned in March 70. So 71 war, I had about 1.5 years service. There, the topmost is Mahavir Chakra, Second Lieutenant SS Samra, whose statue we installed in Officer Training School, Madras, from where we passed out in 1970, completion of our Golden Jubilee. But somehow me and my wife went searching again his village, where is Samra from? Because his father had left after he lost his only son. And so is with many other people. So I have, Punjab government has been kind to issue the letter to name that government senior secondary school Pakhoke as Shaheed Lieutenant Samra. Now Punjab government is doing to do all that, so that at least name lives. People will come and go. So this is what we are talking about, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and few other things somebody was talking from here. Their name lives. As we say, Shaheedon ki chitaon pe lagege har varsh mele. वतन पे मरने वालों का यही निशान होगा. And that also, now coming to, I'll come back to not much of my history because, you start from India Gate to National War Memorial, there's a history. So, yeah. He was telling me there's a Manekshaw place in Delhi cantonment. They're going to have a possibly gallery for everything to do with INA because many things are not known. And with me, I have, we have a good organization, Jalandhar National Martyrs Memorial Committee, whose part I am. And this is the souvenir I released in about 3 years back. And you know what it contains? It contains 56, 57-page letter which are written by Colonel Gurbakhsh Singh Dhillon from Gwalior to our association. He was a part of INA, they all would know. But how much planning extra would have gone into this person still at that age? He wrote 56 in his own hand. Today you get tired writing or remembering those things, which when we see him 97 years, I was seeing him talking to, who was the company commander, to Mr. Shubham. Hats off to you, sir. And when I say 97-year-old veteran, is a good point. We never say old. 97 years old young veteran. Salute to you, sir. Now coming to women, it's actually we talk about India. It's not that women are in the army now only, but it was tribute to Netaji's vision. Here again I have a photo where Captain Laxmi Sehgal is standing in the company of men in those jungles and all. Here is a small photograph. It's so strange that a single woman attired in the uniform of same what Subhash Chandra Bose and his people were there. She was there leading the Rani Jhansi Brigade. And again, I had the fortune of meeting long years back in Jalandhar to her. Hats off to such ladies. It starts from that. We talk about Rani Jhansi, or in Sikkim we read Mai Bhago. So many. Whole history is replete with the such. Anywhere you go in India, the names are there of girls. But in army, we have women from for long back, especially in medical corps. Today, a few days back, there was a photograph in the history. There were 3 lieutenant generals who would have got recruited about 20 years back or 25 years back. But it was that doctors who could go because they were more confident in themselves. They could talk to anybody and fire our jawans or officers also, men officers if required. Because they were very confident from. So women were there. There is only we saw people flying the civil airlines, captaining the, sometimes all 4 women doing a historical flight. And now, as again somebody mentioned from there, they have actually I have got a prompter, Shubham, he knows much more than me. I would have missed out that thing. Staff college is a very, very honorable, you can say at majors level, this is the ultimate one officer can do of the Army, Navy, Air Force, plus civilian officers will go there of other services. 5 women officers have qualified for the staff college for the first time. And one of them is couple. He is an ordnance officer, husband and wife both have qualified. So it is really to say like 2 wheels of this thing, they have come out together. Husband and wife make it to the staff college. I don't know who was looking after their children. And that's where the role of I just wrote an article. We have a My Mala Trust. Again, in every nook and corner of the country, people are doing these things. Even one Dr. Sadhu Singh Dhami, he was in the ILO, 30s he was there. So he set up a trust in My Mala's name. So I wrote an article before because 27th we are getting, they are giving a lot of scholarships and all. So again, I wrote that our grandparents, we are forgetting some roles, which is now catching up abroad. Because abroad, parents are working fully busy. So was with me because my father was cycling down every day 40 kilometers one way, 40 kilometers. And I am product of my grandfather, who had seen from Sardar Bhagat Singh, Jallianwala Bagh, and where I worked, Sardar Bhagat Singh University, he was also in the army, Sardar Bhagat Singh. So a lot of mix-up of history here, and I am a product of that. Once my grandfather told when I was a young officer, we used to own cycles. I was seeing very nice. In IIT here, people are cycling. That's what we used to have young officers in the army. We were not allowed, neither we could afford, nor we were allowed. If somebody could afford it, no 2-wheelers were allowed. So my grandfather told me, what nonsense, you're going on cycle. I was having a car in 1935. So I told him, Punjabi, Baba ji, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਾ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੇ ਜੇਸੀਓ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸੀਗੇ ਅਫਸਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਉੱਪਰ, ਮੈਂ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦਾ ਅਫਸਰ ਹਾਂ. ਆਈ ਲਵ ਟੂ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਔਨ ਸਾਈਕਲ. ਸੋ now coming to girls like NDA, many new things are happening. See, it happens over, if I mentioned that medical officers were there a long time back, so slowly officers came, and where I got trained in Officers Training School, Madras, now it is Officer Training Academy. The girls who are being trained, that company, I was in Mactila company. Mactila is a place of World War, this thing. So they are all mostly being trained from there. And there are a number of them in the army. You know, they have been cleared for permanent commission. But there is a right that when NDA came, first NDA goes with a lot of efforts. Again, it was happening for a long time, discussion, karna hai, nahi karna hai, kaise, how will they do it. The army had some resolution because, and army is not like that. If they have girls into that place, they'll make sure 100% facilities are made for them. Yesterday, I inaugurated some football tournament in Punjab. Again, I am part of that. When team came, girls were running around, sir, hamara toilet kidhar hai, wo rakha hai, tent laga ke, you know, they can't go there. But army was resisting slowly that we'll do it NDA, that they do not have any problem on their personal side. Okay? But NDA, I was surprised. I was trying to guide many things. Me and my wife, we actually counseled about 300 girls on the telephone only. Girls asking such questions, sir, अच्छा वो जड़ा ये academy हैगी है उत्थे घरों जा सकते कि रोज उत्थे रहना पड़ेगा, you know, like that. Even though we have an academy in Mohali, my Bhago Academy, as I mentioned, a great lady in Sikh history, 25 girls are there, and that academy has produced girls who are pilots, best pilots in the country when the course is run. And there's Maharaja Ranjit Singh Academy where 50 people are trained for getting into army. And in the civil, we are having many things. One, some girls, Sant Baba Seva Singh Ji, Khadur Sawal, if you know, he is a Padma Shri. Go and you must try to go there. Khadur Sahib is a place where 8 Sikh gurus had their feet. You know, Langar Pratha actually started after Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So they are all doing, people are going into the army because most of the people, not that paper, everybody is running to Canada. It's not that so in Punjab. If given chance, if they are qualified, if they are given good counseling, their first choice is to army, as it was shown for NDA. That for 19 seats, there are 1.75 lakh applications, which are not even for IPS or IAS. But other thing is that when they get selected, then they have all the reasons. Then I used to tell my people, I said, my son would not have waited for 3, 4 years, 5 years. So I'm sure INA, he was a great visionary to assure or ensure that if girls recruited into Army, Navy, Air Force in combat roles, what I was talking, logistic roles, medical or other things. First, girls came into EME, my corps, then engineers, signals, where it was telecommunication or technology. Combat role is now, they are going to artillery, they are going to armored corps, like that. And we had some reservations, supposing, like a pilot got caught in Pakistan. What could happen to our girls? You know, we are very sensitive about the, you know, protection of our girls. So that was some of the reservations. But now it is full swing. I saw the photographs of course running in NDA, OTS and all, girls insisting for same parameters of physical fitness what men people go. So it's a great road. I am sure Netaji had a lot to do with this. And I have a lot of things which I can talk about Netaji because I've been hearing from my grandfather, I've been hearing from my father. And now Shubham made my, you know, interaction with so many. We had, when India Gate, there was a program. So Netaji, you can talk about hours and hours, but best thing I thought in present army is ensuring or assuring people that girls can do same job as well as the gentlemen can do.
Thank you, General Sir. Thank you so much. So we will move on to our next panelist, none other than Manoshi Sinha, author, historian. So Manoshi ji, we all know that as a part of your efforts towards reviving the glory or resurrecting the INA history, you have been interviewing a lot of INA veterans for some time now. So we would like to understand the situation that they were faced with post-independence, of what all circumstances they went through, how they are placed now, and what is their future. So if you can shed some light. Thank you.
Namaskar, Jai Hind, Vande Mataram. लेफ्टिनेंट रंगस्वामी माधवन पिल्लाई जी को मेरा सादर प्रणाम। और इस समारोह में आज़ाद हिंद फौज के 26 सेनानियों स्वतंत्र सेनानियों के परिवारगण यहाँ पधारे हैं, उनको भी मेरा सादर प्रणाम। और यहाँ
I would request the audience to give them a standing ovation, please.
और यहाँ आने के लिए उन्हें हृदय से हमारा धन्यवाद।
Please be seated. Please be seated.
I have interviewed Parmanand Yadav ji, Lieutenant Asa Sahai ji, Lieutenant Rama Mehta ji, Bhagmal Yadav, Shri Jagram. Shri Jagram was the bodyguard of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose for 13 months. One thing common in all of these Azad Hind Fauj veterans was whenever they spoke about Netaji, there were tears in their eyes. And I will describe about 4 INA veterans because of the shortage of time. In 7 minutes, I'll have to complete. So Parmanand Yadav ji, he is now 104 years old. He would have been here today if he is not well, he is bedridden. He was a covert spy and a gunner under the Azad Hind Fauj. While he worked as a covert spy in Assam before the battle between the British and the INA took place in the northeast, he worked as a medicine seller, and he used to gather information about how many number of British camps were there, and he used to pass the information to the INA. And he was once caught along with his, along with another freedom fighter, and they were put into a cell. And Parmanand Yadav ji, he somehow managed to escape by digging a tunnel. And when he came out, he remembered that his friend was still there in the other cell. He again dug a tunnel, and he went and took his friend out of the cell. And he also narrated about an incident. We all know about freedom fighter Raas Bihari Bose. His son, his Indian name is Bharat Chandra. Masai Bose is his Japanese name. He was only 24 years old when he was as a fighter pilot. He took a suicide step by taking his fighter pilot into a British ship that carried British ammunition and also British soldiers in the Japanese waters. So not only Raas Bihari Bose, but also his son, Bharat Chandra, Masai Bose, also sacrificed their lives for the freedom of the country. And I interviewed Rama Mehta ji. This interview was facilitated by Shubham Sharma. Rama Mehta was only 17 years old when she joined the INA as a sepoy. And in 8 months of training, she got promoted to a lieutenant and also the platoon commander and as a guard of honor. And she was also trained as a nurse. Not only she, but also all of her family members joined the INA. Her mother, Lilavati Mehra, her sister, Nilam Mehra, her brother and sister-in-law, all of them fought for the freedom of the country. And she, as a nurse, while she was working in the front line, she narrated how the INA soldiers, after they were wounded, they used to tell the nurses to hurry so that they would come back to the battlefield and resume fighting against the British forces. And she also narrated about one incident when one INA soldier, he lost a leg in battle, but he was all geared up to go back to the battlefield and fight for the motherland. That was the spirit of the INA soldiers. And about the condition of the INA veterans after independence, only few of the INA veterans could get some recognition, very counted few, and very counted few were recruited in the Indian Army and other posts. And many thousands of the INA veterans lived in oblivion and penury. I would like to tell about Laxmi Indira Panda from Odisha. She was only 14 years old when she joined the INA. As her father was also INA, and both her parents breathed their last after a bombardment by the British in Burma. And she was only 14 years old then. She went to the camp of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and she expressed her wish to become an INA soldier. As she was only 14 years old, they refused to take her. But she continued standing and sitting in front of the camp, and at last Netaji Bose was forced to take her in the INA. Initially, she was given very small jobs like cooking and cleaning of dishes, etc. But later, seeing her dedication and determination, they gave her training in warfare. And she soon became an expert in the art of warfare. After India gained freedom, she came to India and she worked for 60 long years as a housemaid, working in people's homes, washing utensils in many homes for a survival for 60 years. You can imagine the plight of a freedom fighter. And after 60 years, she was recognized by the government, but by then it was too late. She was in her deathbed, and she breathed her last. When Lieutenant Madhavanji was describing about her plight, he was all in tears, he was weeping. A few days ago, I met him. And I would want to tell about Sangara Singh Mann. He killed almost 50 Britishers in the INA battle against the British in the Northeast. And for this, he was awarded with 2 gallantry medals by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. After the INA soldiers were taken as prisoners in the Red Fort, he was put in a small cell that has only space to sit and stand, no space to sleep. And he was about to be encountered after India was declared independence, but he somehow freed himself. And in Punjab, he was spied upon by Nehru, so he had to change places, and at last he settled in Vadodara. And he had to stay in oblivion, working as a security guard for a very meager salary, just to hide his identity. Oh, my 7 minutes done?
Were we independent?
Huh? In independent India, yeah.
Were we at all independent?
Yeah, that's so.
And I would like to tell one point, because I interviewed Lieutenant Pillaiji. He said that the INA got the support of the Japanese, but we yet did not know that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose paid all the amount for the ammunitions, arms and ammunitions and guns bought from the Japanese. That's a very huge. Thanks, everyone. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. I would especially like to thank Manoshi because she has taken the physical strength in spite of her failing health to be here, and we're really thankful to have you here today. Thank you, Manoshi. So, in the interest of time, I will quickly move to Shubham, our youngest panelist. And just to introduce Shubham, he holds the highest number of individual repository of manuscripts, letters, photographs, or any other document pertaining to the INA and the interactions of Netaji Bose with his generals and so on. So Shubham, we would like to hear from you, basis your records, your discussions with your grandparents. What was the strategic importance of the Battle of Moirang, which led the INA making inroads into the Indian soil, and then the tricolor was hosted for the first time. So Moirang is in Nagaland, and that was the first, check post which the Indian National Army had acquired, putting its foot in the Indian soil. So yeah, over to you, Shubham.
Thank you, Surya ji. First of all, I thank all of you today for coming here, and I thank IHAR, Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Defense, DRDO, IIT Delhi, and IIT Kharagpur, and Rishikul University for giving me this platform. Since Sir has asked me about the strategic importance of Moirang, I would like to tell you, sir, that my great-grand-uncle, my great-grandfather's youngest brother, was Deputy Brigade Commander of Bahadur Group, Lieutenant Colonel Kunwar Bahadur Sharma, who hoisted tricolor with Colonel Shaukat Ali Malik in the battlefield of Moirang, which was the first victory of Indian National Army. He had a privilege to serve as military secretary to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose for short duration, and later on he assumed a charge as the Deputy Brigade Commander of Bahadur Group, which was the special forces of INA, and had defeated 50 parachute brigade. Till date, 50 parachute brigade has never got defeated except by the INA, and that was in the Battle of Moirang. So, sir, since you have asked me about the strategic importance of Moirang, if you see the topography of Imphal, sir, Imphal is just like a bowl. ओके इम्फाल का पूरा इलाका प्लेन का है, आसपास पूरी पहाड़ियां हैं. अगर हम नॉर्थ में देखें तो इम्फाल के नॉर्थ में कोहिमा और इम्फाल के बीच में नेशनल हाईवे नंबर 2 है, और वहाँ पे सेनापति डिस्ट्रिक्ट है. ठीक है, अगर इम्फाल के अगर हम लोग जो है नॉर्थ में ये इसमें देखें, अगर ईस्ट में देखें तो वहाँ पे उखरूल पड़ता है. वेस्ट में अगर हम देखें तो नेशनल हाईवे 37 सिलचर टू इम्फाल है, और उसके अलावा अगर हम नॉर्थ वेस्ट में देखें तो वहाँ पर हमारा तामेलोंग करके एक इलाका पड़ता है. और साउथ में अगर देखें, वी सी द सदर्न गेट्स टू इम्फाल, दे वर पैलेल एंड मोइरांग. तो Imphal had a garrison of 4 corps of the British Indian Army. In the 14th Army of Field Marshal William Slim, there were basically 3 main corps, out of which 2 corps, the 33 corps which was stationed in Dimapur, and a 4 corps which was stationed in Imphal. So these were the 2 main striking corps of the 14th Army. तो 4 कोर का गैरिसन बेसिकली उसको सराउंड करके आईएनए ने कट ऑफ करना था, जिससे कि एक समय बाद आफ्टर द शॉर्टेज ऑफ द सप्लाईज एंड राशंस तो वो सरेंडर हो जाए गैरिसन. और वहाँ पे पूरा जब गैरिसन आ जाता, पूरा कोर हेडक्वार्टर वगैरह वो आ जाता, ऑर्डिनेंस डिपो आ जाता, तो आईएनए फर्दर आर्मर्ड व्हीकल्स और उन सब के साथ में रेस करके और आगे फाइट कर सकती थी. तो इम्फाल को कट ऑफ करने के लिए साउथ में मोइरांग जो था, वहाँ पे मोइरांग और पैलेल, मोइरांग का टास्क बहादुर ग्रुप को दिया गया था और पैलेल का टास्क दिया गया था नंबर 2 गुरिल्ला रेजिमेंट विच वाज नोन एज गांधी ब्रिगेड ऑफ द आईएनए. तो उनको टास्क दिया गया था. सिमिलरली फिर आज़ाद ब्रिगेड इंडक्ट की गई थी. तो मोइरांग क्योंकि जो है आपका उस टाइम पे थोड़ा मतलब ऊंचाई पे था, और मेरे ग्रेट ग्रैंड अंकल जो थे उन्होंने बेसिकली लोकटक लेक पड़ता है, तो उसमें एक मतलब जगह पड़ती है चांग करके, तो वहाँ से उन्होंने जो है मतलब रियर ऑफ द मोइरांग ही लॉन्च्ड एन अटैक व्हाइल द फ्रंटल असॉल्ट्स वर लॉन्च्ड बाय द 2 कंपनीज ऑफ द बहादुर ग्रुप. तो जब ये फ्रंटल अटैक्स और रियर से अटैक हुआ तो उस वजह से इट वाज अ वेरी सरप्राइज अटैक कि ब्रिटिश फोर्सेस को वहाँ पे हारना पड़ा. एंड जब नेताजी को ये खबर मिली तो ही वॉज वेरी हैप्पी दैट चलो मोइरांग हमारे हाथ में आ गया है. एंड फर्दर बट व्हाट हैपेंड इज कि सर इम्फाल के अलावा यहाँ पे क्या हुआ, दीमापुर जो यहाँ पे 33 कोर का गैरिसन था, तो व्हाट हैपेंड कि उस गैरिसन को ना वहाँ पे हम लोगों ने आईएनए और जापानीज फोर्सेस का, इफ यू सी द ऑपरेशंस ऑफ द आईएनए, देयर वर 3 जापानीज डिविजन्स एंड 1 डिवीजन ऑफ द आईएनए. 31st डिवीजन अंडर द कमांड ऑफ जनरल सैटो जापानीज की, वो कोहिमा कैप्चर करनी थी. 33rd डिवीजन अंडर जनरल यानागिडा गेंजो एंड 15th जापानीज डिवीजन अंडर जनरल यामोची, उसने इम्फाल कैप्चर करना था. और आईएनए की जो डिवीजन्स थी, 1st डिवीजन उसमें लगाई गई थी. तो इट हैड 3 ब्रिगेड्स. नंबर 1 गुरिल्ला रेजिमेंट, इट वाज सुभाष ब्रिगेड, वो उसकी 1 बटालियन आराकान में थी, और 2nd और 3rd बटालियन बेसिकली आपके कोहिमा वाले सेक्टर में लगाई गई थी 31st डिवीजन के साथ में. और जो वाकई की हमारी जो गांधी और आज़ाद ब्रिगेड जो थी वो लगाई गई थी यहाँ पे आपके इम्फाल साइड। तो इम्फाल साइड फोकस ज़्यादा था। इंस्टेड ऑफ दैट अगर इन लोगों ने दीमापुर के साइड ज़्यादा फोकस किया होता, क्योंकि दीमापुर से क्या है सर कि दीमापुर वॉज द लास्ट रेल हेड, और वहाँ पे क्या है कि एक लीडो करके जगह पड़ती है आसाम में। तो जब जापानीज का इन्वेजन हुआ था 1942 में, तो आधी फोर्सेस कट के जो है बर्मा से यहाँ पे इंडिया आ गई थी, और आधी फोर्सेस जो थी ब्रिटिशर्स की वो कट के चाइना चली गई थी। तो लीडो से उड़ान भरते थे हवाई जहाज, वो फूड सप्लाईज वगैरह ड्रॉप करते थे। दैट रूट इज नोन एज हम्प रूट। तो बेसिकली वहाँ से एक रोड कंस्ट्रक्ट हो रही थी पुरानी बर्मा रोड को लिंक करने के लिए, दैट वाज लीडो रोड। तो अगर उस लीडो रोड का कंस्ट्रक्शन अगर रुक गया होता, और वो एक ही तरीका था दीमापुर अगर वहाँ पे आ जाता, क्योंकि सीधी बात है इट वाज द लास्ट रेल हेड, वहीं से सारा जो है माल उतर के जो है गाड़ियों के थ्रू वहाँ पे जा रहा था। तो वो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन अगर रुक गया होता तो फौजें कभी लिंकअप नहीं हो पाती, क्योंकि स्टिलवेल्स रोड जो है ओल्ड बर्मा रोड को कनेक्ट नहीं कर पाती। एंड बर्मा रोड वॉज द लाइफ लाइन फॉर दीज एलाइड फोर्सेज, बिकॉज जो सारी चीज़ें होती थी वो रंगून के पोर्ट तक आती थी, और रंगून से यूनान को जोड़ने के लिए बर्मा रोड ही मतलब एकलौती रोड थी। तो बेसिकली जब जापानीज का ऑक्यूपेशन हुआ तो ये बर्मा रोड कब्जे में आ गई। तो सारा ऑपरेशन जो अंग्रेज करा रहे थे वो इस बर्मा रोड को आज़ाद कराने के लिए बेसिकली करा रहे थे। तो आईएनए फोर्सेस एक्चुअली सर आई बिलीव दैट देयर वर मल्टीपल फैक्टर्स। एक ये भी फैक्टर था कि लीडो से अगर हमने दीमापुर कैप्चर कर लिया होता तो लीडो रोड का कंस्ट्रक्शन कभी कंप्लीट नहीं हो पाता, फोर्सेस लिंक नहीं कर पाती, और कभी बर्मा नहीं गिर पाता, और फिर ऊपर से हम लोग भी रेल हेड्स वगैरह जो है यूज करके आराम से कोलकाता तक आ सकते थे। तो वी एक्चुअली फोकस्ड मच मोर ऑन इम्फाल रादर देन दीमापुर, विच वॉज द मेन लॉजिस्टिकल सप्लाई लाइन। तो ये एक कमी थी सर। और उसके अलावा व्हाट हैपेंड कि 1942 में जब अंग्रेज यहाँ से छोड़ के गए बर्मा को, तो इट वाज अप्रैल 1942, और हमारी जो कैंपेन शुरू हुई आईएनए का एडवांस हेडक्वार्टर्स, इट वाज एस्टैब्लिश्ड इन फरवरी 1944। तो नियरली यू गिव 2 years to your enemy for the reorganization। आपने 2 साल दुश्मन को 42 से 44 तक का दे दिया। आपके अप्रैल 1942 से फरवरी 1944 तक का जो 2 साल का टाइम मिला, तो उसमें दुश्मन को तैयारी करने का टाइम मिल गया। उन्होंने रोड्स वगैरह वहाँ पे कंस्ट्रक्ट किए, ब्रिजेस बनाए, और उसके अलावा अपनी नई नई डिवीजन्स रेस की। तो अगर आप अपने दुश्मन को रीऑर्गेनाइज होने का टाइम दे दें तो वो आपको बहुत बुरा जो है मतलब बाद में वो करता है, डिफीट करता है उसको। तो बेसिकली ये हमारी जो है कुछ ये 2 स्ट्रैटेजिक मिस्टेक्स रही हैं। फिर तीसरा ये भी था कि कुछ आईएनए के सोल्जर्स अनफॉर्चुनेटली दे डिफेक्टेड एंड दे गेव द इंटेलिजेंस जो थी आईएनए की जो असली हालत थी। नहीं तो इम्फाल गैरिसन वॉज ऑलमोस्ट अबाउट टू फॉल। INA was only 2 miles away from Imphal, and the garrison was almost on the verge of getting surrendered. But what happened? The deputy brigade commanders of Gandhi Brigade and Azad Brigade. Gandhi Brigade's deputy brigade commander at that time was Major JBS Grewal, and deputy brigade commander of Azad Brigade was Major Prabhu Dayal. So what happened that these officers switched the sides and they told the Britishers that see यहाँ पे तो बहुत ही बुरी हालत है। तो व्हाट हैपेंड कि इम्फाल का जो गैरिसन था तो उसके आसपास सारी आर्मर्ड व्हीकल्स वगैरह लगा के पूरा एक बॉक्स लाइक डिफेंस बनाया गया, और वहां से फिर एयरफोर्स के थ्रू एयर मेंटेन की गई 3 महीने तक सप्लाईज। इसी को बैटल ऑफ एडमिन बॉक्स फील्ड मार्शल विलियम स्लिम ने अपनी डिफीट इनटू विक्ट्री में लिखा है। सो बेसिकली क्या है कि ये हमारी कुछ स्ट्रैटेजिक मिस्टेक्स रही आईएनए की, बट INA fought very bravely in the Battle of Eravadi, in the Battle of Mount Popa. It was a historic retreat by an army. You know what? In Battle of Eravadi, अब मैं आपको एक किस्सा सुनाने जा रहा हूँ। इरावदी की नदी के ऊपर जब कर्नल ढिल्लन साहब के पास मात्र 1200 सिपाही थे नेहरू ब्रिगेड में, तो उस समय उनके पास 8 मशीन गन, 8 मीडियम मशीन गन, 3 मोर्टार और 303 वाली सादा राइफलें थीं। और उनको दरअसल आदेश ये था कि उस टाइम पे रंगून से हेडक्वार्टर खाली हो रहा था, तो रानी झांसी रेजिमेंट की जो विमेंस लड़कियां थीं तो वो बेसिकली रिट्रीट हो रही थीं। तो नेताजी ने उनको ऑर्डर दिया था कि देखो हमें रिट्रीट के लिए तुम टाइम गेन कराओ, कैसे भी करके यू एंगेज द एनिमी एट इरावदी सो डैट वी गेट मोर टाइम, सो डैट लड़कियां आराम से घर पहुंच सकें और अंग्रेजों के हाथ में ना पड़ जाएं। तो उस समय कर्नल ढिल्लन साहब जब नेहरू ब्रिगेड कमांड कर रहे थे तो उनसे उनके सिपाही कहते हैं, ही वॉज अ मेजर एट दैट टाइम, लेटर ऑन ही वॉज प्रमोटेड टू लेफ्टिनेंट कर्नल। तो वो कहते हैं उनके सिपाही कि ढिल्लन साहब आप हमें इतनी बड़ी फौज से क्यों मरवाने ले जा रहे हैं, इतनी बड़ी फौज से हम जीत तो पाएंगे नहीं, दुश्मन के पास टैंक, मशीन गन, हवाई जहाज सब कुछ है, हमारे पास तो कुछ भी नहीं है, तो क्यों ना हम लोग सफ़ेद झंडे दिखाकर हथियार डाल दें। तो कर्नल ढिल्लन साहब कहते हैं कि ज़रा ठहरो और मुझे सोच लेने दो। एंड ही वेंट बिहाइंड द बुशेस, झाड़ियों के पीछे जाकर खूब जोर से रोए और बड़े भारी मन से उन्होंने श्री गुरु गोविंद सिंह जी को याद किया और कहा कि आज आपके इतिहास को दाग लगने जा रहा है, जिसमें लिखा जाएगा कि आपके एक सिंह सिपाही ने अपनी फौजों के साथ दुश्मन के सामने हथियार डाल दिए। तो जब उनके सिपाहियों ने देखा कि हमारा ब्रिगेड कमांडर इतनी टेरिबल सर्कमस्टेंसेस में भी ही इज नॉट रेडी टू गिव अप, तब उन्होंने कहा कि ढिल्लन साहब, अभी हमने आपको बहुत रोते हुए देखा, आप हमारे ब्रिगेड कमांडर हो और हमने अपना मन बदल लिया है। जब तक हमारे शरीर में आखिरी कतरा भी खून की बूंद का होगा, हम लोग देश की आज़ादी के लिए लड़ेंगे। आप हमें युद्ध में जहां झोंकेंगे, जहां कहेंगे, हम पीछे नहीं हटेंगे। तो कर्नल ढिल्लन साहब कहते हैं कि फाड़ दो ये सफ़ेद झंडे, अब हमें अपने देश की आज़ादी के लिए अंतिम सांस तक लड़ना है। फिर उन्होंने बैटल फील्ड में ही अपने सिपाहियों को इंस्पायर करने के लिए कविता लिखी। वो ये थी, उठो उठो सोए हुए भारत के नसीबों को जगा दो, आज़ादी यूं लेते हैं जवां लेकर दिखा दो, खूंखार बनो मेरे शेरे हिंद सिपाही, दुश्मन की सफ़ें तोड़ दो, एक तहलका मचा दो, आहिंद के बदले में अदू चीज ही क्या है, हो भूख हो तकलीफ रुकावट हो थकावट, ख्वाह जख्म में गिरा मौत को भी हंस के दिखा दो, क्यों लाल किला अब यूं रहे दुश्मन के हवाले, चल वहां लश्करे हिंदी की धूम मचा दो, मीनारे कुतुब देखता है राह तुम्हारी में, चल उसकी बुलंदी को तिरंगे से सजा दो, कुछ और तमन्ना है और ख्वाहिश ना मेरे दिल में, आजाद वतन हिंद में जय हिंद बुला दो, उठो सोए हुए भारत के नसीबों को जगा दो, कर याद शहीदों का लहू देश के खातिर, एक टोली भी दुश्मनों के हजारों से लड़ा दो, हो रास्ते में अगर भाई तो उससे भी मार गिरा दो। और यह युद्ध शुरू हुआ 7 फरवरी 1945 तक, और 20 फरवरी 1945 तक दुश्मन की 2 इन्फेंट्री डिवीजनें, 1 आर्मर्ड ब्रिगेड और 3 एयरफोर्स की स्क्वाड्रन्स इरावदी नदी क्रॉस नहीं कर पाई। फील्ड मार्शल विलियम स्लिम ने आजाद हिंद फौज के कर्नल ढिल्लन साहब की इस ब्रिगेड के एक्शंस के बारे में लिखा है कि आई हैव ऑल रैंसम्स ऑफ द एंटायर मिलिट्री सर्विस बट आई कैन नॉट अंडरमाइन इवन अ सिंगल इंस्टेंस व्हेन सच अ ब्रॉड रिवर हैड बीन सो सक्सेसफुली डिफेंडेड अगेंस्ट सच अ डिटर्मिनेंट असॉल्ट, इट वाज द लॉन्गेस्ट रिवर क्रॉसिंग अपोज्ड इन एनी थिएटर ऑफ वर्ल्ड वॉर II। ये आईएनए का लोहा था। और सिर्फ यही नहीं, इसके बाद में मजबूरी के कारण उनको रिट्रीट करना पड़ा वहां से, क्योंकि दे वर गेटिंग एग्जॉस्टेड ऑफ द सप्लाईज एंड अदर थिंग्स। सो कर्नल ढिल्लन, मेजर जनरल शाहनवाज खान एंड कर्नल प्रेम कुमार सहगल ये माउंट पोपा पे आ गए, और ये लोग माउंट पोपा पे बिकॉज ऑफ देयर एक्शंस अंडर द, ये तीनों जॉइंट कमांड में आ गए, और बिकॉज ऑफ देयर एक्शंस अराउंड माउंट पोपा, all three were tried together in the historic Red Fort trial for waging war against the Empress. Major General Shahnawaz Khan, IC 58, 1/14 Punjab Regiment. Major Colonel Gurbaksh Singh Dhillon, IC 336, 1/14 Punjab Regiment. And Colonel Prem Kumar Sehgal, IC 226, 2/10 बलूच रेजिमेंट। इन तीनों के ऊपर जो है अंग्रेजी शासन के खिलाफ युद्ध छेड़ने का आरोप लगाए गए, और इनके जो ऊपर जब ट्रायल हुआ तो इनके नाम के नारे लगते थे पूरे हिंदुस्तान में, लाल किले से आई आवाज, ढिल्लन सहगल शाहनवाज, इन तीनों की हो उम्र दराज, लाल किला तोड़ दो, आजाद हिंद फौज छोड़ दो। द ट्रायल लेड टू द ट्रिगर in the Indian, it triggered revolt in the Indian armed forces, followed by a revolt in the HMIS Talwar, and फिर कोर ऑफ सिग्नल्स जबलपुर एंड
Shubham,
गिलगिट में। तो
sorry.
दैट इज व्हाई दो द INA lost the battle but it won the war for India's independence. Thank you.
Very inspiring, Shubham. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, taking the trail from Shubham, where he mentioned HMS Talwar and the Royal Navy, mutiny, I would now go to our next. Yeah, please.
मैं सूर्य जी के बारे में कुछ बताना चाहूँगी. ही इज ऑल्सो एसोसिएटेड विद नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस. हिज ग्रेट ग्रैंडफादर सतीश चंद्र रॉय was a financier for East Bengal under Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and he hosted Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose often at his ancestral home in Rangpur, now Bangladesh.
That's so kind of you. Okay, so to take the trail forward, so Anuj, coming to you, we often heard or we have read in many newspaper reportings, in many history books about Clement Attlee's visit somewhere in the early 60s, where he mentioned that the primary reason for the British to quit India was the royal mutiny of the Indian sailors, starting from the INA trials, which actually triggered a nationwide protest by the armed forces, and that is when they realized they would not be able to hold on. So how far it is a correct statement historically, and what are your thoughts around this? Just check that.
Yeah. It's such an irony of fate that we should be discussing Netaji and INA when we should be, talking of a British source to validate whatever Shubham just said, that INA did play the biggest role in making, in getting India freedom. Now, this source is also the biggest of them all. I mean, just not an ordinary source. We are not talking about a historian or some, small-time bureaucrats or officers. We're talking about the gentleman who decided to free India, Clement Attlee, Sir Clement Attlee. He was the Prime Minister of England. So this, as you rightly said, there's been a talk about Clement Attlee, making this statement. And often some people who don't like to hear these words, what Attlee said, they, and this is more true for the academic circles, and they keep on saying, no, this is not a proof, like this is like a hearsay, there is no proper record of it, so on and so forth. Now, I wish to ask them, if that is the case, I mean, in the way you're using these, these phrases like no direct source and, no precise proof, then I'm going to ask you the same question about Gandhiji also, because Gandhiji, I'm not sure when Gandhiji was kicked out of the train in South Africa, as is claimed, was there somebody standing by with a, iPhone there to record everything? So what is the proof? So I think the proof is Gandhiji said so. So I believe what Gandhiji said so. So don't ask these kind of questions. There is no direct proof and there is of course proof, very clear cut proof, academically sound. So it so happened that Clement Attlee, who decided to free India, he came to this country in 1956, October, and he came to Delhi, and he was of course met by the Prime Minister, and then he was in Calcutta and he was in Lucknow. So let me start with Lucknow. He came to Lucknow after Calcutta. So in Lucknow, he was met by then Chief Minister Sampoornanji, who had known Subhash Bose and who was in a manner speaking in favor of the view that the INA has played the most pivotal role in making India free. He even wrote about it. So in the interesting story is that Sampoornanji asked Clement Attlee about what happened to Subhash Bose. Did he die in any plane crash or whatever? And Attlee was evidently in a very frank. Was very frank person. I mean, at least that point of time, he was speaking his mind, freely. So Attlee told him that he's in Russia. He has not died. So that he said. And this conversation was overheard by the security officer from the IB. And that gentleman went on to write about it more than once. And he said, I even recorded the conversation, and this was sent to the IB headquarters. Now, the problem, of course, with the IB that they don't release any records, and we in India are having very strict secrecy regime. We don't, tell secrets, especially coming from the IB and RAW. You never come to know anything what happens inside. So that's one problem. Anyhow, but luckily for us, Mr. Attlee was in Calcutta, and there our double was that there was no governor there, because the previous governor probably had whatever. So the Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court was asked to, he was the officiating as the acting governor there, Phani Bhushan Chakravarty. Now, Calcutta High Court today and Calcutta High Court then are two different, worlds, I believe. They're not the same. Calcutta High Court was the first proper, court in this country. And Phani Bhushan Chakravarty was the first Indian to have become the Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court. Until 1952, the Chief Justice of the Calcutta High Court were British. So he was the first Indian to become the Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court. So he was not a small-time journalist or historian here and there. He was a very eminent person. So Clement Attlee, of course, he hosted him as the governor. They were at Raj Bhavan for about 2 days. And it was there that he actually asked Clement Attlee, sir, why did you take the decision to free India when the Second World War had ended and you had won the war? So what is the reason for it? And of course, the reasoning that Mr. Attlee gave was the same, that what Shubham has just talked about, that because of the INA, there was a near revolt-like situation, and we did face problems in the naval ratings, and that's why we decided to leave. I decided we should leave. And then to add to it, Phani Bhushan Chakravarty asked Mr. Attlee what was the, all this Gandhiji's movement, which was being waged for quite some time. How far did it impact your decision to free India? He said minimal. There was no role of whatever Gandhiji did. And now we are finding a lot of records, a lot of information. This can be supported by multiple other sources also. That's contemporary as well as, people like Dr. Ambedkar who have talked about it later on. So whatever Mr. Attlee said was correct. And one good thing Phani Bhushan Chakravarty did was he left a note in his writing about it. And that note was delivered to Dr. Ashi Majumdar. And because it was not, people were not allowed to talk publicly, even he was afraid to talk about publicly. So he left a note, and our fortune that Dr. Majumdar deemed it fit to publish that note in his book. So it is available, that handwritten note in Bangla by Phani Bhushan Chakravarty, in which he's describing his entire meeting. So this is a very good source. I mean, I have no reason to doubt. There's a handwritten note. I mean, and also, there's a very eminent historian, Barun Dey, and he was in the left Congress circle. He was not part of the, the right side. He also said the same thing. I happened to meet Clement Attlee in 1960 in Oxford. And Attlee repeated the same story to me. And this was published in a newspaper.
And it's coming from somebody
it's
who is not from the other side.
The other side. Not only that, it was published in the Telegraph, which is a Congress mouthpiece. So it's not that, and in the recent years actually.
Yeah.
So this is, I mean, we can go on and on, but what Attlee said was gospel truth, and it is there in front of us.
Thank you, Anuj. That's very insightful. I purposely brought up this question so that all of you should be aware, and the right history should percolate to the country, to every nook and corner. So with that, we move on to our next panelist, none other than Chandrachur, who is the biographer of Netaji Bose, and his book, Bose, has been released only a couple of months back. So I know, Chandrachur, you keep delivering talks across, the crisscrossing the country. So I would rather today ask you a very different question for the interest of the audience over here. So we all know that there was a Mukherjee Commission which was there. Mukherjee Commission finally concluded that Netaji did not pass out in the Taihoku air crash. My question for the benefit of the audience is, since you people have been very closely associated with that trial or, that inquiry commission, what were the top 2 evidences which helped the commission to come to this conclusion?
Thank you, Surya, and thanks to IHAR and the organizers for having me here. It's a great pleasure to interact, to listen to so many persons of eminence and learn. Learning is a process and it has to go on lifelong. So it has been a great experience. Thank you very much. Now, before I go to answering your specific question, Surya, I just want to touch upon very briefly a couple of other issues, related issues, which my fellow panelists have been talking about. Now, when it comes to INA soldiers, the story of each INA soldier is an inspiration. And they turn you from within yourself, they turn your soul. You learn to look at your patriotism, learn to question your standpoint, your viewpoint about politics, about everything afresh. But, my friends like Shubham, like Manoshi ji, they have been collecting anecdotes, documenting the stories of these bravehearts very nicely, very comprehensively. But probably we need to also go a step beyond and look at a mega narrative. In the sense that the question that becomes looming, that very large question that comes up is, who actually is afraid of the INA? Was it only the British, or was it also our own government after independence? Because it took our own government more than 50 years to declassify the files related to the INA, which were finally released in 1997, 1998. The World War has stopped in 1945, so 52 years. Why? And secondly, even after they have been declassified, now 25 years have gone by, there has been no institutional effort to analyze, examine those records. 990 files is a lot of information. So where is the effort to cull out the information, document the story of INA, document the story of INA? Yeah, एक second. Document the story of INA and bring out the story to the people of the country. Neither academic institutions nor any government effort. Now, something happened very curious, and you would find it very amusing perhaps, that in the 1950s, late 1950s, an effort was made by the government of India to write a history of the INA. And it was left at the manuscript level and never published. So in 2010, I asked the government, the Ministry of Defense, for a copy of that manuscript. So they refused to give me a copy, and their reason was that if they give me the copy, that I would use it commercially and use it in my own name, which is a preposterous claim, but somehow I convinced them. The Central Information Commission told me that submit an affidavit so that you can never use it commercially. I said, okay, I'm fine with it. I submitted the affidavit, and the Central Information Commission passed an order asking the Ministry of Defense, the Historical Division, to give me a copy of the manuscript. Now, what the History Division of the Ministry of Defense did was amusing, rather amusing. They not only refused to give that copy of the manuscript, उन्होंने मना तो कर ही दिया, पर उन्होंने एक केस भी फाइल कर दिया दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट में. वो केस था ऑर्डर के खिलाफ नहीं, ऑर्डर सीआईसी का जो ऑर्डर था, उन्होंने वो ऑर्डर में कहा था कि इनको एक मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट कॉपी दिया जाए, तो उसको चैलेंज नहीं किया, उन्होंने केस फाइल कर दिया मेरे खिलाफ कि मैंने मांगा ही क्यों. मैं 2012 की बात कर रहा हूं, तो ये आई मीन द क्वेश्चन रियली बिकम्स हु इज अफ्रेड ऑफ द आईएनए. और उन्होंने एफिडेविट में ये भी कहा था कि 2-3 साल में हमें इस जो मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट है उसको रिफ्रेश करके अपडेट करके अपनी तरफ से छापेंगे, वो भी नहीं हुआ है. सो we don't really have a comprehensive history of INA which needs to come out, and that is linked. कल हमारा एक closed session था जिसमें बात कर रहे थे. This is very closely linked to the political re-establishment of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose in the mainstream political discussion. In the mainstream political discourse, we have to, I mean, there are various stalwarts. We have been talking about Gandhism, we have been talking about Nehruvianism and all sorts of things. And even now in political discussions, you find their mentions, and there are also people like Ambedkar and Savarkar who have started finding mention now. But still, the idea of Subhash Chandra Bose is not yet mainstream. Until that becomes mainstream, resolving this INA issue, why the INA is always neglected, that will not be resolved. So we need to focus on that. Now, that's all, I'm done. And now, Surya, very briefly, your question.
Yeah.
What are the two topmost things that proved that there was no plane crash and there was no question of Netaji dying that day on 18th of August 1945 in Tayoku? So, like a very good jurist, Justice Mukherjee focused on finding documentary evidence. His theory was that men may lie, circumstances do not. A very critical judicial principle he followed. And following that trail of papers, he found that there was neither any death certificate in the name of Netaji, nor was there any cremation certificate in his name. So a name that constantly came up was the name of a Japanese soldier, Ichiro Okura. Now, several people claimed that Netaji had died. Even the doctors who treated Netaji, they had claimed at different points of time. They have spoken out to the investigators in the 1940s, late 1940s, then during the Shanwas Committee investigations in the 1950s, again during the Khosla Commission investigation during the 1970s, and again now when Justice Mukherjee was investigating. So they contradict each other. At each point of time, they have given different versions contradicting themselves. So they were, the eyewitnesses, so-called eyewitnesses, were not only contradicting each other, they were contradicting themselves at different points of time. So it was such a confused state of information, Justice Mukherjee decided to follow the trail of the documents. Now, one person has suffered a crash, a third-degree burns, has been brought to the hospital, and he has died in the hospital. The doctor says, I have issued a death certificate in his name. That is not to be found. Now, if the death certificate has been issued in his name, that death certificate itself will have to be used for obtaining a cremation permit, which is a standard procedure all over the world. So the names have to be common. Now, in this case, Subhash Chandra Bose's name is not available anywhere. Justice Mukherjee checked the records, asked the Taiwan government for the records of 4 or 5 days. The Taiwan government very generously sent the records of, I think, 3 or 4 weeks of records. And Netaji's name does not feature anywhere there. So only common name that features both in death certificate and in cremation permit is Ichiro Okura. So since when did Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose start being equated with a Japanese soldier? So absolutely that was very clear. And during that time, Anuj had also contacted the Taiwan government, and the Taiwan government very clearly told him that there is absolutely no record of any plane crash during that time. And this sealed the investigation. There was absolutely no other way of proving. See, all evidences that have been collected were presented to Jawaharlal Nehru, who was the Prime Minister. Not only the Prime Minister, he was a barrister, legally trained person. He had looked at all the evidence, and when Netaji's elder brother asked him for the evidence, that if you are so convinced that my brother has died, please give me the evidence. So Jawaharlal Nehru wrote back to him that how can I give you any direct evidence? I don't have any direct evidence. It's my feeling, but I have looked at the circumstantial evidence and I feel that he has died. So feeling versus documentary evidence, which clearly establishes that there was absolutely no possibility of Netaji being anywhere present there. During the plane crash, there was no plane crash, and his question of death just does not arise.
Thank you, Chandrachur. That was very
हल्का सा पॉइंट ऐड कर दूं कि अभी जो दिल्ली में श्रद्धा मर्डर केस का बात चल रहा है, वो सारी डिस्कशन में रात को यही बात बोल रहे हैं कि सर्कमस्टेंशियल एविडेंस पे ही ये फंसेगा आदमी, क्योंकि डायरेक्ट एविडेंस है नहीं। और कॉमन सा फंडामेंटल प्रिंसिपल होता है, आप में से जो वकील हमका मालूम होगा कि अगर आपके आई विटनेस अकाउंट में अगर कंट्रडिक्शंस आ जाए, तो यहाँ वही बात जो चंद्रचूड़ ने बताई है कि आई विटनेस अकाउंट जो लोग कह रहे थे कि सुभाष बोस की और उसके साथ में एक जापानी जनरल की डेथ हो गई थी, उनके आई विटनेस अकाउंट में इतने ज़्यादा लूप होल्स हैं, आपको दिखाएंगे, आप देख के हैरान हो जाओगे कि अजीब अजीब सी बातें कर रहे हैं हर एक आदमी अलग अलग टाइम पे। तो जब आपके आई विटनेस अकाउंट के अंदर प्रॉब्लम शुरू हो जाए, जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया भी एक्सेप्ट कर रही है ऑन रिकॉर्ड पे, तो ऑब्वियसली उनके पास में एक एस्टैब्लिश प्रिंसिपल है लॉ का कि आप कंटेम्प्रेरी रिकॉर्ड्स को चेक करेंगे। मान लीजिए कि मैं यहाँ पर आके क्लेम करता हूँ कि मैं दिल्ली में रहता हूँ, मैं जाके क्लेम करता हूँ मद्रास में कि मैं रहता हूँ युगांडा में, थर्ड जगह जाके मैं बोलता हूँ कि मैं तो कलकत्ता में रहता हूँ, तो आप मुझे पूछोगे भाई तो अपना आधार कार्ड दिखा मुझे, तू रहता कहाँ पे है। तो जब भी कोई आई विटनेस अकाउंट आपका ओरल एविडेंस अगर आपका स्केची हो, प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करेगा, तो आप कंटेम्प्रेरी रिकॉर्ड चेक करेंगे। और वो चंद्रचूड़ ने आपको बताया कि सारे रिकॉर्ड, ऐसा नहीं उसमें भी लोग जानबूझ करके, एंड बी वेरी केयरफुल, सुभाष बोस की फैमिली में बहुत से पॉलिटिकल एलिमेंट्स आ गए हैं, बहुत सारे पहले से ही हैं लेकिन अब ज़्यादा हो गए हैं, तो वो बैठ के अपने पॉलिटिकल कन्वीनियंस के लिए आंसर दे रहे हैं और चीज़ों को घुमा रहे हैं। जैसे एक चीज़ को घुमाया जाता है कि रिकॉर्ड के एब्सेंस होने का मतलब ये नहीं कि वो घटना नहीं घटी थी, रिकॉर्ड एब्सेंस की बात नहीं, रिकॉर्ड हैं सन 45 के, जैसे इसने बताया कि रिकॉर्ड अवेलेबल है, क्रिमेशन का पूरा 1 महीने का रजिस्टर जापानियों का बिल्कुल अवेलेबल है, एक एक आदमी का नाम पता, कौन कितने बंदे मरे, सबका नाम है। लेकिन जितने लोगों का वो दावा करते हैं कि प्लेन क्रैश में मरे थे सुभाष बोस और जापानी जनरल, किसी का नाम उसमें नहीं है। और सिर्फ तो इसका मतलब ये अपने आप में एक बड़ा क्लियर एविडेंस है। अगर यही एविडेंस अगर नेताजी को ना लेके किसी अर्बन नक्सल का हो, तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट इनको दौड़ा के मारेगा सब सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को। तो हमारी किस्मत ख़राब है कि अब सारा का सारा टेंशन फोकस ऐसे ही 2 टके के लोगों के ऊपर, वो आतंकवादियों पे और अर्बन नक्सलों पे ही होता है देश का। यहाँ लोगों की कॉन्शियस जागती नहीं इन केसेस में, उस वजह से हम लोग अब सफ़र कर रहे हैं 50-60 साल से।
थैंक यू अनुज, थैंक यू।
Hello. Surya, before we end, just one small fact, 2 seconds,
Yes,
just 2
please,
seconds.
please.
I mean, it's the actually Justice Chakravarty conversation that happened. Just coincidence that the conversation took place on 21st October, the foundation day of the Azad Hind government.
So I'll take just a minute or two to share an anecdote or a small story which is not quoted anywhere, not mentioned by any of the books, not even in your book, Chandrachur, because it is from my family archives. A story that I heard from my father, and it dates back to 1943, when Bengal famine, the famous Bengal famine, which was triggered by Churchill diverting the ration, rice, wheat, everything to to the forces in Europe. Bose was invited to a dinner organized by the local Bengali association in East Pakistan, And, my grandfather, obviously being his financier, was also there, great-grandfather, sorry. And they offered him all kinds of, food, all kinds of, and typical Bengali dish, starting from a hilsha, chicken, and whatnot. What a great man. When he, looked at the film, I mean, sorry if my voice is choking, but when he looked at the entire array of food, he started crying like a child, he started crying. Food ke ro rahe the wo. And everybody was puzzled, what happened? Kya galti ho gaya humse? So then when he calmed down a bit, he said that, मेरे देश के लोग भूखे बैठे हैं, एक वक्त का चावल रोटी कुछ नहीं जुट रहा है, लोग चावल का पानी से अपना पेट भर रहे या वो भी नहीं मिल रहे. And it was such bad, if you see photographs, those are horrible photographs, I can't even share those photographs. And how can I have food? And that too with this kind of platter. So there was a silence for a minute. So then my great-grandfather and his friends requested him to have something. So he agreed to have, I'm putting it on records, he agreed to have boiled potato, little boiled potato, and little bit of masoor ka dal with a little rice. This much, just this much, because he did not want to dishonor the invitation, and for the sake of it, he agreed to have it. That's the man we are talking about. There are other stories from my family archives as well, but in the interest of time, I will not share it. Our family was very recently documented by the government of India, and thanks to Professor Kapil Kumar for that. And thank you everyone. So I would, yeah. So we will now take the time to, sir, please, let's allow to finish. Yeah. So I will now request the audience to stand up because we will give a small token of our thoughts, respect to Lieutenant R. Madhavan, and I will call upon our President, Dr. Subroto Gangopadhyay, to do the honors. Sir, please. Manoshi, if you want to add something.
So this is a small recognition and a token of our gratitude. And this plaque states, honoring living legends in a map of India, which is what it should be, irrespective of the depictions today. And it goes on to say, to Lieutenant Rangaswamy Madhavan Pillai, Indian National Army, a lifetime of sacrifice for the freedom of Mother India. And with it, a small check of 1 lakh rupees as a token recognition is hereby given to Lieutenant Madhavan. अब मैं माधवन जी से अनुरोध करूंगा कि 2 शब्द बोलें, उनके मुंह से सुनना हमारे लिए गौरव की बात है।
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody present here. I feel very happy to be part of this special occasion. Thank you for honoring me in the platform. It's so overwhelming. Thank you to Mr. Sabuto Gangopadhyay organized such as an event where people of a different background get an opportunity to know the told and untold fact of India history. I am very grateful to India History Awareness Research Team to flash light on the sacrifice done by great leaders like Raas Bihari Bose and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. We thought India independence would not have been possible. This honor is not only for me, but for entire freedom fighter and their successor of Azad Hind Fauj. I believe Mr. Subrata Gangopadhyay would continue to organize such events through which present generation and the coming generation will get to know India history. My best wishes and blessing to him. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Bande Mataram. Bande Mataram. Bande Mataram.